In the darkness of North Atlantic, 300 feet below the surface, HMS Venturer goes silent. No hum of engines, no clink of tools, no whisper between men, just the creak of steel under pressure and the sound of 43 hearts beating too loud. Above them, somewhere in the black water, a German destroyer is hunting. Its sonar pings echo through the hull like a hammer on an anvil. Each ping is a question. Are you there? And every man aboard knows one wrong sound, the answer is death. Lieutenant James Launders stands frozen at the periscope well, his hand raised in a silent command. His crew watches him motionless, barely breathing. The sonar operator, a young man named Harris, has his headset pressed tight against his ears, his face pale and slick with sweat. He hears it all. The screws of the destroyer churning overhead, the active sonar sweeping the water, the faint groaning of the enemy hull as it turns. And beneath it all, the terrifying silence of their own boat. This is February 1945. The war is ending, but the Atlantic is still a killing ground. German U-boats and surface raiders prowl the convoy routes. Allied submarines hunt them in return. And sometimes, hunter becomes hunted. Venturer is a British submarine, a V-class boat built for one purpose: sink enemy ships before they sink you. She is 276 feet long, narrow, cold, and cramped. Her hull smells of diesel, sweat, and fear. Her crew is experienced, survivors of a war that has already drowned thousands of submariners on both sides. They know the game. They know the odds. And they know that right now, those odds are not in their favor. The German destroyer above them is a Type 1936A, fast and deadly, equipped with sonar, depth charges, and a crew trained to kill submarines. It has been hunting them for 2 hours now, ever since Venturer fired a torpedo spread at a convoy and missed. The convoy scattered. The destroyer stayed behind. And now it circles, patient and methodical, listening for any sign of life below. Launders lowers his hand slowly. The message is clear. Asterisk, stay still. Stay silent. Do not move. Asterisk. In the control room, the helmsman's hands rest on the dive planes, but he does not touch them. Any adjustment would make noise. The engineer stands beside the main motor controls, his fingers hovering over the switches, but he does nothing. The batteries are still running, just enough to keep the boat stable, but the motors are off. They are drifting now, carried by the current, suspended in the cold Atlantic like a ghost. Harris lifts one hand, 2 fingers extended. The destroyer is 200 yards away. Close. Too close. Another ping, louder this time. The sound wave slams through the water and rattles the hull. Some of the younger crew members flinch. One man closes his eyes and mouths a prayer. Another grips the railing, so hard his knuckles turn white. But no one speaks. No one moves. Launders has done this before. In 1943, off the coast of Norway, Venturer was depth charged for 6 hours straight. They survived by going deep, going silent, and outlasting the hunters. He learned then that silence is not just a tactic. It is a weapon. Sound is the enemy's eyes. Take away the sound, and you take away their ability to see you. Become invisible. Become nothing. But this time is different. This time, the destroyer is closer. This time, the sonar operator on the enemy ship is good, very good. He knows the tricks. He knows the patterns. And he is patient. The pings come faster now. The destroyer is tightening its search grid, spiraling inward, closing the trap. Harris listens, his face tense, his jaw clenched. He hears the screws change pitch. The destroyer is slowing down. It is almost directly overhead. Launders hold his breath. The entire crew hold their breath. The submarine holds its breath. And then silence. The pings stop. The screws fade. The destroyer is still there, somewhere above them. But it has gone quiet too. It is listening, waiting, trying to trick them into making a sound. This is the game within the game. The destroyer knows Venturer is here, somewhere in this patch of ocean. It knows the submarine cannot run forever. Sooner or later, the batteries will die. Sooner or later, the air will go bad. Sooner or later, the crew will have to move. And when they do, The destroyer will hear them. Minutes pass. 5, 10, 15. The cold seeps into their bones. The air grows stale and heavy. Some men begin to shiver. Others stare at the bulkheads, their minds racing, calculating how much time they have left. The CO2 scrubbers can only do so much. The batteries are draining. The current is pushing them closer to the surface. Launders does not move. He stands like a statue, his eyes fixed on the depth gauge. 310 feet. If they go any shallower, the destroyer will see them on sonar. If they go any deeper, the hull will crack. They are balanced on a knife edge. Harris suddenly stiffens. He hears something. A faint sound, distant but growing louder. He looks at Launders and taps his headset once. Then he holds up 3 fingers. 3 ships. The convoy is coming back. Launders closes his eyes for a moment, his mind working fast. If the convoy is returning, the destroyer will leave. It has to. Its job is to protect the convoy, not chase one submarine for hours. But if Venturer makes a sound now, any sound, the destroyer will drop depth charges and blow them apart before it leaves. So they wait, silent, still, invisible, and above them, the war moves on. The first sound that returns is the distant rumble of merchant ship engines. Deep, heavy, slow. The convoy is reforming, steaming southeast toward the Norwegian coast, carrying supplies, ammunition, troops. The destroyer's screws surge to life. It is moving away, rejoining the formation, abandoning the hunt. Harris listens, tracking the sounds as they fade into the distance. He waits. 1 minute, 2, 3. Then he looks at Launders and nods once. Gone. Launders exhales slowly. He lowers his hand. Around him, the crew begins to breathe again. Some men slump against the bulkheads. Others wipe sweat from their faces. One man starts to cry, silently, his shoulders shaking. No one judges him. They have all been there. But Launders does not relax. Not yet. He signals to the engineer. Slowly, carefully, the motors are brought back online. A low hum vibrates through the hull. The helmsman adjusts the dive planes, bringing them back to periscope depth. Venturer rises through the black water, like a corpse coming back to life. At 60 feet, Launders raises a periscope. He sweeps the horizon. Gray sky, gray sea. No ships. The convoy is gone. The destroyer is gone. They are alone. He lowers the periscope and looks at his crew. They look back at him, exhausted, hollowed out, but alive. Well done, he says quietly. It is the only praise they will get, and it is enough. This is what submarine warfare is. Not the torpedo attacks, not the surface gun battles, not the dramatic dive sequences in films. It is this long, silent, suffocating hours of hiding in the dark, waiting for death to move on. It is psychological endurance. It is discipline. It is the ability to do nothing perfectly for as long as it takes. And the crew of Venturer is very, very good at it. James Launders is 28 years old. He has been in the Royal Navy since 1939, a submariner since 1941. He has commanded Venturer for 2 years. In that time, he has sunk 4 enemy ships, damaged 6 more, and survived 11 depth charge attacks. He is calm, methodical, and ruthless. His crew trusts him completely, not because he is friendly, he is not, but because he keeps them alive. He learned the art of silence from his first captain, a cold, quiet man who once told him, a submarine is not a warship. It is an ambush, and ambushes require patience. Launders took that lesson to heart. He drilled his crew endlessly on silent running procedures. No talking, no unnecessary movement, no metal on metal, tools wrapped in cloth, boots removed, hatches secured with rubber gaskets. Even the cooks learned to work in silence, preparing cold meals that required no pots, no clattering, no noise. The result is a crew that can disappear, completely, for hours. But silence is not just about discipline. It is about understanding sound, knowing what the enemy can hear, knowing what the ocean carries. In water, Sound travels faster and farther than in air. A wrench dropped on a steel deck can be heard miles away. A diesel engine running on the surface can be detected from 10 miles. Even the sound of a man's footsteps walking across the control room floor can give away a submarine's position. But sound also bends, reflects, distorts. Temperature layers in the water create thermoclines that block or scatter sonar. Ocean currents mask engine noise. The shape of the seabed can create acoustic shadows where submarines can hide. Launders knows all of this. He studies the water like a hunter studies the forest. He knows when to go deep. He knows when to drift. He knows when to shut down everything and become a hole in the ocean. And his crew knows how to follow. Harris, the sonar operator, is the boat's ears. He is 22 years old, thin, pale, with dark circles under his eyes from too many nights awake. He can identify a ship by the sound of its propeller. He can tell the difference between a merchant vessel and a warship, between a destroyer and a corvette, between a German Type 7 U-boat and a British T-class sub. He listens to the ocean the way a musician listens to an orchestra, picking out individual instruments in the noise. He is also terrified constantly, but he never shows it. He just listens and reports and listens again. The helmsman, Petty Officer Clark, is older, 34, a career sailor with steady hands and no imagination. He does not think about what could happen. He just holds the boat level, adjusts the trim, keeps them at depth. He is the kind of man who could fly a plane through a storm without blinking. The engineer, Lieutenant Marsh, is a perfectionist. He knows every pipe, every valve, every wire in the boat. He can diagnose a problem by the sound it makes. He maintains the batteries, the motors, the air scrubbers, the ballast system. He keeps Venturer running, even when she should not be able to. Together, they are a machine. A quiet, deadly, invisible machine. But the ocean is not the only enemy. The cold is. The pressure is. The isolation is. Submariners live in a steel tube, sealed off from the world, breathing recycled air, eating canned food, sleeping in shifts and bunks stacked 3 high. There are no windows, no horizon, no sense of time. Days blur together. The only light is the dim red glow of the control room lamps. The only sounds are mechanical. The hum of motors, the hiss of air, the drip of condensation on metal. Some men break. They crack under the weight of all. The fear, the dark, the knowing that at any moment the hull could rupture and the ocean would crush them in seconds. Those men are transferred out, quietly, without judgment. The ones who stay are different. Harder, quieter. They learn to live with the fear. They learn to find comfort in routine. They learn to trust the boat, the captain, the silence. And they learn that sometimes the only way to win is to disappear. 3 days later, Venturer is hunting again. Launders has new orders. Intelligence reports indicate that a German U-boat, designation U-864, is transiting the Norwegian coast, heading south toward Germany. The U-boat is carrying critical cargo, advanced jet engine components, technical blueprints, possibly even scientists. It is a high-value target, and Admiralty wants it sunk. But there is a problem. U-864 is not running on the surface. It is submerged, running deep, moving fast, and it is being cautious, aware that British submarines are patrolling the area. This is unprecedented. Submarine versus submarine combat is rare, almost unheard of. Submarines are built to hunt surface ships, not each other. Their torpedoes are designed to strike hulls from below, not track moving targets at depth. Their sonar is crude, short-range, unreliable. And firing a torpedo while submerged is a complex, dangerous calculation. You have to account for depth, speed, angle, water temperature, target course. One mistake, and you miss, or worse, you give away your position and become the target. But Launders does not hesitate. He has his orders, and he has a plan. He positions Venturer along the expected route of U-864, near the island of Fedge, off the Norwegian coast. The water here is deep, cold, and treacherous. The coastline is jagged, full of rocks and narrow channels. It is perfect ambush terrain. And then he waits, silent, invisible, Patient. Hours pass. The crew stand at action stations, tense and alert. Harris listens, sweeping the hydrophone slowly, filtering out the noise of the ocean, the creak of ice, the crash of distant waves, the low moan of the current, and then he hears it, a faint, rhythmic sound. Screws. Slow. Steady. Deep. He taps Launders on the shoulder and points. Bearing 285. Range unknown. Depth unknown. But it is there. Launders moves to the periscope well. He cannot raise the periscope. They are too deep, and doing so would give them away. He has to rely on sound alone. He has to track the U-boat by listening. And then he has to fire blind. This is a gamble. This is the edge of the possible. Harris continues to report. The sound is getting louder. The U-boat is closing. It is running at 150 feet, moving at about 5 knots, zigzagging slightly to avoid detection. It does not know Venturer is here. Launders begins the calculations. Speed, course depth, range, torpedo travel time. He does the math in his head, cross-checks it with the attack table, adjusts for water temperature and salinity. He has to predict where the U-boat will be in 4 minutes, the time it will take for the torpedoes to reach the target. He calls out the firing solution. The torpedo crew loads 4 Mark 8 torpedoes into the tubes. They work in silence, efficient and precise. Each torpedo weighs over a ton. Each carries 750 pounds of high explosives. Each has a range of about 5,000 yards. But at this depth, at this range, in these conditions, they might as well be throwing spears. Launders watches the stopwatch. He listens to Harris's updates. He adjusts the solution. And then he gives the order. Fire 1. A thud. A hiss. The first torpedo leaves the tube. The boat shudders slightly. The torpedo motor ignites, and the weapon streaks through the water, invisible, silent, deadly. Fire 2. Another torpedo. Same depth. Slightly different angle. Fire 3. A third. Spread wider. Fire 4. The fourth and final shot. Launders has just fired a full spread at a target he cannot see, based on sound alone, using calculations that would take a modern computer seconds, but he did in his head. Now they wait. The torpedoes run. Harris listens, tracking them, listening for the U-boat, listening for the impact. The crew is frozen, staring at the bulkheads, imagining the scene unfolding in the dark water. For torpedoes hunting one submarine that does not yet know it is about to die. 90 seconds. 2 minutes. 3. And then a sound. Faint. Metallic. A change in the rhythm of the U-boat screws. It knows. Somewhere in the black water. The sonar operator aboard you, 864, has heard the torpedoes. He is shouting. The captain is ordering evasive action. The U-boat is turning, diving, trying to run. But it is too late. Harris hears the first impact. A deep, muffled thud. Then a second, louder. Then a roar. The sound the U-boat's hull rupturing. Water rushing in. Compartments flooding. Men screaming. The sound of a submarine dying. And then silence. Launders does not celebrate. He does not smile. He just stands there, listening, making sure. Making sure the U-boat is not coming back. Making sure there are no survivors. No counterattack. No last-minute torpedo fired in revenge. Harris listens too. He hears the wreckage settling. The groan of metal. The hiss of air escaping. And then nothing. Target destroyed. He reports quietly. Launders nods. He orders the boat to periscope depth. He raises a scope and sweeps the surface. Oil slick. Debris. A few pieces of wreckage floating in the gray water. No lifeboats. No survivors. U-864 is gone. 73 men are dead. The cargo is lost. The mission is complete. Launders lowers the periscope. He looks at his crew. They look back at him, silent, processing what just happened. They have just done something no one has ever done before. They have sunk an enemy submarine while submerged. No periscope. No visual contact. Just sound, math, and nerve. It is a victory, a historic victory. But it does not feel like one, because in the silence that follows, they all know the truth. They could have been the ones at the bottom of the ocean. They could have been the ones flooding, drowning, dying in the dark. The only difference between them and you, 864, is that Launders fired first. And in submarine warfare, that is the only difference that matters. The war ends 3 months later. Germany surrenders. The U-boats surface, one by one, and sail into Allied ports, black flags flying. The killing stops. The convoys stop. The hunting stops. And the submarines return home. Venture returns to Britain in May 1945. The crew disembarks, gaunt, pale, blinking in the sunlight like men who have lived underground for years. Some go home to families. Others go to hospitals. A few never quite adjust to life on land again. They drift restless, haunted by the silence. Launders is awarded the Distinguished Service Order. Harris receives a Distinguished Service Medal. The rest of the crew gets commendations, back pay, and a few days leave, and then they are forgotten. The world moves on. The war becomes history. The stories are told and retold, but always the same ones. D-Day, the Battle of Britain, the liberation camps. Submarine warfare is too dark, too claustrophobic, too silent to make good cinema. No one wants to hear about men hiding in the dark, waiting to kill or be killed. But the lessons remain. In the decades after the war, navies around the world study what happened in the North Atlantic. They study the tactics, the technology, the psychology. They learn from the successes and the failures. And they realize something fundamental. Stealth is the ultimate weapon. The Cold War era brings nuclear submarines, faster, deeper, quieter. The technology evolves. Sonar becomes more advanced. Torpedoes become smarter. Missiles are added. But the core principle remains the same. The submarine that is heard first is the submarine that dies first. And the crew that can go silent, completely silent, is the crew that survives. Modern submarines are designed around this idea. Every piece of equipment is engineered to minimize noise. Machinery is mounted on rubber isolators. Hulls are coated with sound-absorbing tiles. Propellers are shaped to reduce cavitation. Crew members wear soft-soled shoes. Even the galley is designed to operate quietly, and the training is relentless. Submariners are drilled on silent running procedures until it becomes instinct. They learn to communicate with hand signals. They learn to move without making sound. They learn to endure the psychological pressure of sitting in the dark, doing nothing, while an enemy hunts them overhead, because the ocean has not changed. It is still cold, still dark, still unforgiving, and sound still travels faster than light in water. But the stakes are higher now. Modern torpedoes are faster, smarter, more lethal. A single mistake, a dropped tool, a slammed hatch, an overheard conversation, can mean death for the entire crew. There is no margin for error, no second chances. And the hunters are better too. Modern destroyers and frigates carry advanced sonar arrays that can detect a submarine from miles away. Helicopters drop sonobuoys that listen for engine noise, hull vibrations, even the sound of water flowing over the hull. Satellites track thermal signatures on the surface. The ocean is no longer a hiding place. It is a battlefield. So the submarine crews adapt. They learn to exploit thermoclines, layers of water at different temperatures that bend and scatter sonar. They learn to hide in the shadow zones behind underwater mountains. They learn to drift with the current, engines off, becoming indistinguishable from the background noise of the ocean. They learn to become invisible. And they learn from the crew of Venturer. Because what Launders and his men did in 1945 was not just a tactical victory. It was proof of concept. Proof that a submarine could fight another submarine. Proof that silence, discipline, and patience could overcome superior numbers, superior firepower, superior technology. Proof that the human element still mattered. The sinking of U-864 is studied in every major naval academy in the world. It is analyzed, debated, dissected. Officers write theses on it. Submariners memorize the timeline. The firing solution is taught as an example of perfect calculation under pressure. But what is rarely discussed is the psychological toll. Because submarine warfare is not just about technology or tactics. It is about endurance, mental endurance, emotional endurance, the ability to function in an environment that is designed to break you, the darkness, the cold, the pressure, the knowledge that you are sealed inside a steel tube hundreds of feet below the surface, with no way out if something goes wrong, the knowledge that at any moment an enemy torpedo could strike, and you would have seconds, maybe, to react before the ocean crushed you. Some men cannot handle it. They panic, they freeze, they crack, but the ones who survive are different. They develop a kind of hyper-awareness, a heightened sense of control. They learn to manage fear, to compartmentalize it, to function despite it. They learn to trust their training, their equipment, their crew, and they learn to trust the silence. Because in the end, silence is not just a tactic. It is a mindset. It is the ability to be present, to be aware, to be disciplined, even when every instinct is screaming at you to move, to act, to do something. It is the ability to wait. And waiting, it turns out, is one of the hardest things a human being can do. Launders understood this. He did not just train his crew to be quiet. He trained them to be comfortable with discomfort, to embrace the stillness, to find strength in doing nothing. And that is why they survived. That is why they won. Not because they were louder, faster, or stronger than the enemy, but because they were quieter, calmer, more patient. They understood that in submarine warfare, the winner is not the one who strikes first. It is the one who is never seen, the one who becomes a ghost. The story of Venturer is a reminder that technology alone does not win wars. Tactics alone do not win wars. What wins wars is a human ability to adapt, to endure, to outlast, to go silent when the world is screaming, to stay still when everything is chaos, to trust the darkness when there is no light, and to know with absolute certainty that silence is not weakness, it is power. Years later, historians uncover more details about U-864. The German submarine was on a secret mission, part of Operation Caesar. It was carrying 2 Japanese naval officers, technical drawings for the Messerschmitt Me 262 jet engine, and 67 tons of liquid mercury, a critical component for weapon production. It was supposed to reach Japan, transfer the cargo, and help extend the war in the Pacific. If it had succeeded, the war might have dragged on for months, maybe years. More lives lost, more cities destroyed, more suffering. But it never made it, because a British submarine, guided by nothing but sound and intuition, fired 4 torpedoes into the dark and hit a target it could not see. That single act, that moment of silent, calculated violence, changed the course of the war in a way that was never written in the headlines. No crowds cheered. No medals were pinned in public ceremonies. No films were made. But the impact was real, and the crew of Venturer knew it. They knew that what they did mattered, not because they were told, not because they were celebrated, but because they understood the stakes. They understood what they were fighting for, and they understood the cost. In the decades after the war, some of the crew spoke about their experiences. Not often, not in detail, but occasionally, in quiet moments, they would share fragments, memories, feelings. Harris, the sonar operator, described the sound of the U-boat dying. He said it haunted him for years. The sound of metal tearing, men screaming, water rushing in. He said he could still hear it, sometimes in the silence of the night. Clark, the helmsman, said the hardest part was the waiting, the not knowing, the sitting in the dark, holding the dive planes, praying that the depth charges would miss. He said he learned to stop thinking, to stop imagining, to just hold the boat steady and trust that would be enough. Marsh, the engineer, talked about the machinery. He said he loved the boat in a strange way. He loved the way it responded, the way it held together under pressure, the way it kept him alive even when it should have failed. He said he trusted Venturer more than he trusted most people. And Launders, when asked about the sinking, always said the same thing. We did our job. Nothing more. But there was more. There was always more. Because the men who served on submarines in World War II were not just warriors. They were survivors. They were men who learned to live in the space between life and death, to function in conditions that would break most people, to find meaning in a war that often felt meaningless. They were men who understood that heroism is not always loud. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is invisible. Sometimes it is the act of doing nothing perfectly for hours while the world tries to kill you. And that kind of heroism, the silent kind, is the hardest to recognize because we want our heroes to be loud. We want them to charge into battle, guns blazing, shouting slogans, defying the odds. We want drama, action, spectacle. But real heroism is often none of those things. Real heroism is standing watch at 3 a.m., exhausted, terrified, but still focused. It is holding the boat level when your hands are shaking. It is listening to the sonar when your ears are ringing and your mind is screaming. It is making the right decision when there is no time to think. It is doing the hard thing, quietly, without recognition, because it is the right thing to do. And the crew of Venturer did that. Every day, for years. They did not ask for glory. They did not expect parades. They just did their job. And in doing their job, they saved lives. They shortened the war. They made a difference. And then they went home. Some adjusted. Some did not. Some found peace. Some found only silence. But all of them carried the same truth, that survival is not just about strength or skill. It is about patience, discipline, the ability to endure, and the willingness to disappear when you need to. That lesson, that fundamental truth, is what the story of Venturer teaches us. It teaches us that silence is not empty. It is full of focus, full of intent, full of power. It teaches us that sometimes the best response to chaos is stillness. The best response to noise is quiet. The best response to violence is control. And it teaches us that in a world that demands constant action, constant noise, constant movement, there is profound strength in the ability to stop, to wait, to listen, to become invisible. Because the battles that matter most are not always the ones fought in the open. Sometimes they are fought in the dark, in the silence, in the moments when no one is watching. And the victories that matter most are not always the ones celebrated. Sometimes they are quiet. Sometimes they are forgotten. But they are no less real. The crew of HMS Venturer understood that. They lived it, and they proved it. In the cold, dark waters of North Atlantic, 300 feet below the surface, surrounded by enemies, they went silent, completely silent. And in doing so, they became unstoppable. They became ghosts. And ghosts cannot be killed. That is the lesson. That is the story. That is the truth that echoes through history, long after the last depth charge has faded, long after the last submarine has surfaced, long after the war has ended. Silence is not surrender. Silence is strategy. Silence is survival. And sometimes silence is the only weapon you need. The crew of Venturer knew that. And because they knew that, they lived. Today, the wreck of you, 864 lies at the bottom of the Norwegian Sea, a silent grave for 73 men. And somewhere above it, the ocean moves on, carrying its secrets, its lessons, its ghosts. Subscribe for more stories like this. The legacy of HMS Venturer lives on in every submarine that patrols the depths today, in the silent hunters beneath the Arctic ice, in the ballistic missile boats that drift unseen in the Pacific, in the attack submarines that shadow enemy fleets, invisible and patient. They all carry the same lesson, that silence is power. Modern submariners train for months to master the art of stealth. They learn the same principles that Launders taught his crew 80 years ago. They learn to control every sound, every movement, every breath. They learn that discipline is not optional. It is survival. And they learn that the ocean rewards patience. That waiting is not weakness. That the ability to do nothing perfectly is sometimes the hardest and most important skill of all. Because submarine warfare has not changed, not fundamentally. The technology is better. The weapons are smarter. The boats are faster and deeper. But the core truth remains. The submarine that is heard dies. The submarine that stays silent lives. And the crew that can disappear, truly disappear, becoming one with the darkness and the cold and the pressure, that crew becomes unstoppable. That is what HMS Venturer proved. That is what her crew gave to the world. Not just a tactical victory, but a philosophy, a way of thinking, a way of surviving. Silence as weapon, patience as power, invisibility as armor, and in a world that grows louder every day. That lesson has never been more relevant. Where are you watching this from? Comment below.